Look at the Tizer, back to school is the headline. Classes set to return tomorrow with lockdown likely to lift. South Australian school children are set to return to classroom tomorrow. That would be Wednesday as the state prepares to exit a third lockdown. A raft of new COVID restrictions are planned from midnight tonight after the Modbury cluster shutdown is due to end. The state government is also developing a digital vaccine passport. Ollie, the whole issue around kids and education is a very challenging one, and I think that you'll find that some kids have responded very well to homeschooling and others not so well. And I do fear that there are some who have been subjected to long stints at home. I'm talking about, in particular, Victorian and New South Wales school students who, realistically, we're going to have to keep an eye on them.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Look, I've got a lot of family in Sydney, Gleeson, and talking to my sister over the weekend. She's got an 11-year-old, so I've got an 11-year-old nephew, and all he wants to do, Gleeson, and you can relate to this, is go to school and tackle someone. He just wants to run around. He just wants to bring back the life of, kids in Year 4 and Year 5. That's what they do. They go and run around and have a bit of fun. And when you're limited to just hanging out with the people in your own household, education's obviously vitally important. And for those 17 and 18-year-olds in grade 12 at the moment in New South Wales who are going to be studying for their high school certificate in only a matter of weeks' time, this is a very stressful and difficult situation. They probably thought the worst was behind them in 2020, saw what the cohort did in the graduating class of 2020 and thought this won't happen to me in 2021. Well, it's possibly come back and it's bitten everybody in New South Wales with a vengeance, and it could continue to linger for some time to come. So prioritising students getting back into the classroom, that is obviously something that the South Australian government, in this case, out of the Tizer tomorrow, is able to do as quickly as possible. It's hopefully something as well, Gleeson, that Gladys Berejiklian and the New South Wales government is able to consider as quickly as possible, whether or not that is ring fencing, for want of a better term, some of those particular COVID-19 hotspots in Sydney, and trying to get even just Year 12 students for a start back to high school to sit their HSC in a few weeks. That'd be a start.
The Gold Coast Bulletin / worse than 2020. The Gold Coast is suffering a COVID double whammy as big employers axe shifts and staff. The city has few interstate visitors and no federal financial help because the city remains open for business, unlike lockdown Victoria and New South Wales. And Ollie, you've heard me say this before on this show, and I'll say it again.
Yeah.
When the final analysis is done, when we look at the COVID sort of handbook going forward, one of the industries, in fact, I think the most impacted industry has been tourism. I mean, these guys have just been battered from pillar to post. And the word that keeps emerging, Ollie, is confidence and clarity. And that's why, again, you've heard me say this a million times, the ad hoc way in which this pandemic has been approached by governments of all persuasions in each state and territory, with the Commonwealth being the overarching body, is a national disgrace. It's a national sham, and there needs to be a different and completely altered model the next time a pandemic knocks, and there will be a next time.
Spot on. And you rewind again 18 months ago and you thought what a great initiative this National Cabinet was. Everybody be on the same page. They're fighting for the interest of the country. It was the greatest political manoeuvre probably in the history of this country to put red versus blue front and centre of every single decision that has been made going forward. There's no national approach, we know that. Each state does things a little bit differently. Remember as well, it was meant to be about if there was going to be some sort of outbreak, you'd lock down those streets or lock down those particular suburbs. That has not happened. And you think about all of those businesses, particularly in tourism, which you just mentioned there, Gleeson, and where you are on the Gold Coast, which is just the tourism mecca of this country. They had those tough conversations with their bank managers in 2020. They were given a little bit of leniency. There was an agreement that there would be a little to and fro, that we might be able to extend this particular deal or this line of credit or this loan that you have now out another 12 or 18 months over the cycle of 20 or 30 years, whatever it might be. But your repayments will be just a little bit more in 2021. What happens now? because those conversations, those businesses that are against the wall would be having those similar conversations with the bank, and it would probably be going a little differently than they did last year, because there's no guarantee, there's no way out of this. There's no ongoing financial support at the moment either from the government. No one's looking for a handout, Gleeso, but they just want to see a path to the other side. And there's no guarantees in any of this. And as you say, on the other side of this, whenever that is, whenever the analysis is done, whenever we look at the businesses that have gone against the wall, could this have been done a little bit better? Could there have been some greater cooperation, particularly from those state premiers who thought, we can wedge this, we can do it for our mate who is either Scott Morrison if you're Team Blue or Anthony Albanese if you're Team Red? Nobody's come to this from an approach of trying to do this at a national perspective or in the national interest. They've just tried to really benefit it for either their own political side, and it's a complete sham, as you say.